Good morning. Happy Victory Monday to all of you whose teams were able to pull out a victory this weekend. So let's jump straight into some of the games and we'll talk about a few of the hot topics for the day. We've already went over the Thursday night game, Kansas City and Detroit. I had Detroit picked to win in the event that Kelsey didn't play, and that was the case, so I got that correct. On the early slate of games, I did pretty good on those. I only missed two. I was incorrect. I had Cincinnati beating Cleveland, and I had Tampa Bay losing to the Vikings. I got both of those wrongs, but the games I got correct were Baltimore over Houston, New Orleans over Tennessee, Atlanta over Carolina, Indianapolis over Jacksonville, and San Francisco over Pittsburgh. Oh, also Washington over Arizona. The afternoon games were not so kind to me. I had Denver beating the Raiders. Did not happen. I picked Chicago to beat Green Bay. That did not happen. I'm very thankful to be wrong on that. It's always a good day when the Packers beat the Bears, oldest rivalry in the NFL. I also had the Chargers beating the Dolphins. Didn't happen. I had Philly beating New England. I got that correct. And I had Seattle beating the LA Rams. Also did not happen. And for the Sunday night game, I had Dallas beating the New York Giants. All of those picks were in a previous video if you'd like to go check them. But rolling into Monday Night Football, I'm sitting at 9-6 over the weekend. So at worst, I will go 9-7. At best, I will go 10-6, depending on the outcome. I have the New York Jets tonight, by the way. Um, for a week one, 9-7 or 10-6, I'm pretty happy with, because week one is always a difficult week to pick games because you really don't know what you're going to get. Like, yes, you see some of these starters and some of these teams in preseason, but you really don't know what you're going to get until an actual game, because preseason is not real games. Like, yes, teams and players can look good in preseason, but are they playing against starters on the other side of the ball for the other team? Are all these players putting in 100% effort during preseason if they are starters, or are they just out there to get into the flow of the game? There's just so much unknown with preseason, so it's hard to pick week one. Um, so obviously, coming out of week one with a positive record is something I'm very happy about. Hopefully, after hopefully, normally week two is a little bit difficult, but after week two, you kind of get a sense of who these teams are, and you kind of know what you're going to get out of them, and the picks generally get a little bit better. Uh, but let's jump into some of these games. In the early games, the Falcons beat the Panthers. Overall, that was a pretty, I mean, wasn't a great game. I know we had rookie quarterback starting for the Panthers. Um, we had uh, hang on, I got my notes pulled up here to the side. Uh, I know Bijan Robinson ended up getting a touchdown for Atlanta. I know I had him picked for my offensive rookie of the year. Kind of a tough decision between him and Gibbs for Detroit. So I think Bijan had a little bit better game. Didn't get a whole lot of touches, but he did average over 5 yards per carry. So we had, some good rookie production in that game. I know Panthers quarterback threw two picks. He's a rookie, so that's going to happen. The Browns and the Bengals. So I had Cincinnati picked to win. I thought Joe Burrow would look better after signing a new contract. I thought they would try to come out and kind of change the narrative of how they have struggled against the Browns in Joe Burrow's era, and that just didn't work out. I think Joe Burrow's lack of reps in training camp preseason due to that calf injury is probably an issue, and the calf may not actually be 100%. The weather was not great, so that played in a factor, and that kind of benefited Cleveland, especially Cleveland's defense. Cleveland has a good defense, and I mentioned that in a previous video, and I said that the Browns were they were going to kind of live and die by what Watson does. If he could play efficiently and play well, they could be really good. And he played pretty well yesterday. He He ran a touchdown in, started using his legs a little bit. So the Browns can be a team that really makes some noise that a lot of people really didn't expect. I myself, I knew what they were capable of, but until I really saw them put it together, I wasn't big on them. I had them getting fourth in the division in my predictions, but they could easily get second, third, and if Cincinnati doesn't get their uh, their business in order, Cleveland could potentially win that division. I had the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Colts. It's Trevor Lawrence, third year quarterback, playing against the Colts with a rookie quarterback. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good. He looked very happy with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley looked very good. I believe I believe Trevor Lawrence had a 130 plus quarterback rating when targeting Calvin Ridley. He went over 100 and a touchdown, so that was pretty expected. The Vikings fell to the Buccaneers. There was a video of Kirk Cousins very frustrated on the sideline. Justin Jefferson did what he does. He racked up a bunch of yards. I did predict that Addison would end up getting some good looks due to Jefferson and Hawkinson getting a lot of attention from the defense, and that ended up happening yesterday. Addison had a long touchdown catch. I had the Titans losing to the Saints. That was pretty lackluster game, pretty low scoring, a lot of field goals, and Tannehill had three interceptions, basically allowed New Orleans to stay in that and win that. San Francisco thoroughly manhandled the Steelers, and that's kind of like my point about preseason. The Steelers' offense and Pickett looked really good in preseason. Perfect quarterback rating in preseason, 5 drives, 5 touchdowns. And then the regular season starts, and I mean, obviously, San Francisco has a really good defense, one of the best defenses in the league. But outside of a essentially like a 2 minute type drill. I think there was a little bit more time on the clock. I think then it was like a 4 minutes on the clock, but they went hurry up, high tempo right before halftime, and that's when they put together their one drive to even put up points. But San Francisco come out early, created some turnovers, and really did their thing. Brock Purdy looked good. You can see why he was picked to be the starter. He looks like he has a very good understanding of Kyle Shanahan's offense, and they got their ball to their playmakers. They got Ayuk involved, they got Debo involved, McCaffrey, Kittle got a few touches, and Purdy played pretty well. He really didn't make any mistakes, and they handled their business. Uh, the Commanders beat the Cardinals. No surprise there. I mean, still was a close game, but I think the Cardinals are essentially just playing for the number one pick. I don't think they are really going to put in a ton of effort in games. I'm sure they won't come out and say that, but I really don't see it. Baltimore against the Texans, their offense was a little bit slow to start out. Lamar Jackson really didn't put up good numbers. I figured with all the new additions and a new offensive coordinator, it would take a little bit of time for things to really settle in and everyone to gel. But it was close up until third quarter, and then Baltimore pulled away. Issue there is they lost their running back for the season to a torn Achilles. So if you're needing a backup in fantasy, his backup did come in and get some quality touches, so that could be a target. On to the afternoon games. One of the games I'm very happy about, the Packers and the Bears. Packers pulled out the win. Jordan Love looked pretty good. His stat line itself does not necessarily look great, barely over 50% completion. But one of the things that does look good is his yards per attempt was 9.1, so it looks as if he's pushing the ball down the field. He attempted some deep throws. The early on they stopped the Bears. Got on a full, they the defense held up really good against the Bears. Got a fourth down stop early in the game. Packers were able to get a little bit of a running game going with Jones, get down into the red zone and score. Then they kind of got silent up until halftime when they kicked a 52-yard field goal right before the half. Um, and two key things to note in that game. So Jordan Love is the first quarterback since Aaron Rodgers to start week one for the Packers since the 2007 season, and that was Brett Favre's last season with the team. So Jordan Love is actually only the third quarterback to start a season opener for the Packers in 30 years. That's by far the lowest number in the NFL by a substantial amount. Another thing is the field goal kicker. He is the first person to attempt a field goal for Green Bay since the a different person since the end of the 2007 season or end of the 2006 season. I'm sorry. Mason Crosby started with the team in 2007, and he's been the only kicker to kick in a game from 2007 until yesterday. So, two very long standing Packers now gone. But the Packers did what I'd hoped they did with the transition this off season. They played really good defense. They have a lot of high draft picks on the defense. They've spent a lot of picks over the last several years, high picks on the defense. They played really well against Justin Fields in that offense, and the running game eventually got a little bit established with Jones, and even with Christian Watson not playing, they got their best people the ball, and the offense really got rolling in the second half. So if the defense can keep games close and give the offense time to settle in and get going, give the running game time to get established, Green Bay could win a lot of football games and surprise people this year. I had the Broncos beating the Raiders. I figured Sean Payton would do a little bit better job. Uh, with the season opener, especially being at home, and it really didn't work out. I mean, he went for an onside kick on the opening kick of the game. That just seems like a really dumb decision to me. I know you want to get the ball right away, and if you can take possession away from the Raiders, yeah, that's a great thing to do. But it doesn't seem real advised, and it doesn't really scream I have confidence in my team by doing that. So I think the team they failed to recover the onside kick. I mean, they actually did, but they got penalized for illegal touching. So it just kind of set the tone in the wrong direction for the game. Russell Wilson did look better than he did all most of last year. He threw 2 touchdowns, so he's well on the way to having more touchdown passes than bathrooms in his mansion. That's something that took him almost the whole season to surpass last year. So we'll keep a track on that. But so far, he's off to a good start. But the Raiders did pull out the win with Jimmy G. I had Philly beating the Patriots. That ended up happening. Now, the Patriots kind of shot themselves in the foot early on. They had a pick six. Wasn't necessarily a bad decision on Jones's part, but uh, I think the ball ended up getting tipped, and Darius Slay caught it, took it 70 yards to the house. And also Zeke fumbled early, which gave Philly an extra possession. And Philly got most of their points early off those turnovers, and then really didn't look good the rest of the game. Having new offensive defensive coordinators, uh, I thought the head coach would kind of keep things more the same from last year, even with new coordinators. But um, they're a team like anyone else. They had some changes in the systems, and it's going to take some time for everybody to settle in and get on the same page. Not anything to be overly concerned about. It is week one, but Philly ended up pulling out the win. The Patriots made a hell of an effort to come back and try to get back in the game. They just fell a little bit short. Uh, Probably the most exciting game of the weekend was the Dolphins and Chargers. It was really a back and forth affair, really close game, and Miami ended up scoring, taking a 2 point lead with just minimal time left on the clock, and their defense was able to hold up and stop the Chargers. Probably the biggest upset of the weekend was the Rams beating Seattle in Seattle. Everybody thought Seattle coming off making the playoffs and Geno Smith playing really well. They thought they would really just roll through the Rams without Cooper Cup and some of the issues they've had this offseason. But uh, got to give credit to McVay and that coaching staff. They had their team ready. They had a good game plan, and they walked into Seattle. And after getting down, at one point they were down 13-7, and then it was just all Rams from that point. So credit to them. And obviously, the late game was the Cowboys on the road against the Giants. That was a bad weather game. A lot of heavy rain in the first half. And right off the bat, the Cowboys defense, special teams and defense showed up and showed out, and they thoroughly manhandled the Giants. Um, Final score there, 40-0, one of the largest shutouts in quite a while in the NFL. So those are the game results, and a couple of them to like really talk about and focus on. Most of them, I don't think, have really. I don't think a whole lot that happened yesterday is going to be an indication of how the season's going to go. And I know, and I say that because it's week one. We still have six. Every one of these teams still have 16 games to play, and I don't think any team that played this weekend is as good as they looked or as bad as they looked based off what I saw yesterday. Now, 4 weeks from now, if Dallas is still holding opponents to single digits and they're winning convincingly, then yes, that's going to be that's who they are. But I'm not ready to say that's who they are based off one game. And speaking of them, we'll kind of take a dive into that. So, how? So New York, Brian Dayball got Coach of the Year last year because New York overperformed last year. They exceeded expectations. They won a lot more games than people thought they would. They made the playoffs. They won a road playoff game. So they they were a good team last year, but how did they win? Look at a lot of their games. They played mistake-free football. They played really good defense. They Several games they were behind and their defense kept the games close and they got back in the games, took the lead in the fourth quarter, or even the games they were ahead, they played mistake-free football. They used Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley a lot in different creative ways. And if you look at last night, on the first drive, they were running Jones quite a bit, which they need to. That's part of their offense. They really didn't get Darren Waller involved early on, and Saquon was getting stopped in the running game. You've got to be a little bit more creative than just trying to run him up the middle, especially against a team that has a defensive line like Dallas does. But they got down into field goal range and went to kick a field goal, and what they do, they made a mistake. They let Dallas block it. Dallas ran it back for a touchdown. They missed the extra point on that, so it was a 9 point swing instead of a 10 point swing. But then from there, the wheels fell off. Like Dallas was pressuring Jones, and he looked like the Jones of 2 and 3 years ago, where he was mistake prone. He rushed things, which when you got pressure on you, it's going to happen. But he made some ill advised throws. That's how the Stephon Gilmore pick happened. It was just you're going out of bounds, throw the ball away. Like you're throwing the ball to a receiver surrounded by Dallas players. It's just a bad decision on his part. Um, he got credited with two interceptions. One, it hit Saquon. He had it in his hands, had it in his arms, and Diggs put his helmet on it, knocked it loose. It bounced up, and it was caught by another defender. So technically, it was interception, but it was more so a fumble, in my opinion. But either way, it was a good play by Diggs to hit Barkley at the point of contact with the ball and knock it loose. But at that point, the Giants were all out of sorts, and then things just never got together for them. So they played very much differently than how they did last year, and how they won last year. They did not play that way last night. I don't think this is an indication that the Giants are just going to fall apart. I still think they're going to be a good team. Like I said, it's week one. There's still a lot of football to play. I think they'll make some adjustments, and I think they will get better, and they will look better and play better than what they did last night. Um, we know Dallas's defense creates a lot of turnovers. It's created the most in the NFL over the last few years. I don't think anybody expected them not to create a decent amount of turnovers this year. Um, Now, will they create three turnovers every game? Probably not. Will they create multiple every game? Probably not. But um, their defense is really the strong point of the team. So, and in a game like last night, I mean, Dak, he had over 100 yards passing, didn't have 200 yards, and he really didn't do anything. He didn't account for a single touchdown. The offense didn't account for very many touchdowns, but ones they did were rushing touchdowns, and that's going to be the formula of success for Dallas. Play defense, run the ball, and don't really put the pressure. Don't put the pressure on Dak, because when you put the pressure on him, he doesn't perform, and that's going to be their key to making the NFC Championship, making the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. If any of that's going to happen, they're going to have to play like they did last night in big games, and they're going to have to keep the pressure off Dak. And as much as I mean, I say I hate to say it, but I really don't hate to say it. Any quarterback on any roster in the NFL could have done what Dak did last night for the Cowboys, and they could have done it for a much, much lower cap hit, a much cheaper contract. This is why in my previous video about Dak, I said that Dallas could be trying to develop Trey Lance in an attempt to end up releasing Dak and eat a little bit of dead cap, but replace him with a younger and cheaper quarterback. Because if the team is playing the way it played last night, you don't need a 40 plus $1 million quarterback on your roster to win. You just need a quarterback that does not make mistakes and that can deliver a few passes to keep a defense honest and allow the running game to do what it does, allow the defense to do what it does, and give you extra possessions, and you'll be fine. But their shortcomings in the recent years has been Dak in the playoffs. So with there's no excuse for them not to make the NFC Championship or make the Super Bowl this year if the defense plays like they did. And if they do, there's really only two people to blame. You could really say three, but I think it's only two. One, and I think he deserves the most blame, would be Dak. He's the one that's played bad in the playoffs. Two would be Jerry Jones. He's the one making the decision to pay Dak, keep him long term. And three would be Mike McCarthy. I really don't think it's going to be on McCarthy, but I mean, head coaches get blamed for that. But he had the rest of the team ready. He had them in a good situation. He's calling plays now. So if Dak falls on his face again, he'll take some of the blame for the play calling. But ultimately, I think it should all be Dak, and it should be Jerry for not realizing he's got a good enough team to win without paying a quarterback a lot of money. And on that subject, the 49ers won that way. The 49ers have a very cheap quarterback in Brock Purdy. He is Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft. Because of that, they've been able to put a lot of money in the team around him. They've got a high paid offensive lineman. They've got the highest paid running back. They have a high paid receiver. They have high paid defensive lineman, high paid linebacker, high paid tight end. Like, they have a lot of highly paid players on their team. And with a cheap quarterback who understands um, Shanahan's offense and grasps it and makes good decisions with the ball, makes high percentage throws. I think most quarterbacks in the NFL are capable of making the throws that Brock Purdy made yesterday. Just about all of them can. But not all of them can necessarily understand and grasp Shanahan's offense the way that he does. So that's why he got the starting job, I feel like. But as long as a quarterback is playing efficiently and making good decisions with the ball and getting it into the playmaker's hands and the team around him is good, you can win without a elite quarterback. And San Francisco is proof of that. Dallas is proof of that you don't need a $40 million quarterback to win, because last night, Dak didn't have to do hardly anything. He had to complete a few passes, and that was it. So the rest of the NFL should be looking at how those teams are set up and how they're playing, and they should mimic that. Because look at the AFC. All your top teams in the AFC are doing the opposite. You have the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, the Chargers, soon to be Miami, because they're going to pay Tua. They're All those teams are set up to where the quarterback is making a ton of money, and then they're struggling to put players around them. Like, they have one or two highly paid players around them, and then they're hoping to get good value out of a group of cheaper players. Whereas San Francisco has a low paid quarterback, and they are getting great players around him all over the team that can help the team, and then they're just hoping to get efficient and good play out of one player, which is the quarterback. And I know quarterback is the most important position on the team, but their formula for success is much different than these other teams. And you see, look at Kansas City Thursday night. Travis Kelsey was hurt. Like, injuries are going to happen. You're going to miss players, and you're going to have players hold out for more money. Chris Jones, but they went in that game with the best quarterback in the league, and he made the plays he had to make. Like, he did his job, but they needed these younger players to step up and make plays, and they didn't do it. So their formula for success is to rely on a group of players to play much better and get great value out of them while they're not costing a lot of money. So, would you rather rely on one great player and a group of average players, or a group of great players and one average player? Because that's the difference between the Chiefs and the 49ers right now. And the 49ers look great week one, the Chiefs not so much. Now, again, it's week one. I'm not concerned about the Chiefs. Um, Plenty of time to get their business together. And like I said, I don't necessarily think the 49ers are as good as they looked yesterday yet. If they continue, then yes, they are that good. But um, those are kind of my big takes away from week one. Um, if anybody would like to expand, have more in-depth conversations on any particular game or anything that happened over the weekend, jump in the comments, let me know. I will try to get to it. Looking forward to Aaron Rodgers' Jets debut tonight on Monday Night Football. We'll have a video first thing tomorrow with that game, and we may hit a few more topics, cover some stats for the weekend. We'll have a look ahead for next week. Now that week one is over, I don't like betting on week one, but we'll start throwing maybe some betting nuggets out there, try to see what we can come up with that. And like I said, we'll keep up with my record for game picks for the season, and we'll keep moving forward. In the meantime, get up, get active, do your body some good today. I got my workout in this morning, got some sunshine afterwards, so do something good for your body, and I will catch you next video.